Welcome to the Beautiful Myth channel. After 10 years of marriage, I gave my wife the 520th rose, but she was still not quite satisfied with me. I have to pay for household expenses and prepare holiday gifts. But what have you done? I feel a little resentful. Alara was putting on makeup as she said, "If you can't support your wife, don't get married. Ethan, you don't earn much now. In the future, I'll have to bear your children. Can't you pay a little more?" She was always on high ground, unwilling to pay, only constantly taking from me, and then giving all her tenderness to her good brother. In that case, I'm tired and have decided to set you free. Where we begin today's story. As the medicine in the drip bottle dripped drop by drop, my eyelids gradually grew heavy. "Young man, it's time to change the medicine," the old man said, waking me up. I sat up hastily in a daze. "Young man, are you still single?" the old man asked proudly, taking the arm of the woman next to him. I gave a wry smile, looked at the roses in my hands, and replied, "No, my wife is busy. I can't say that my wife is with another man." The old man looked at me and then began to lecture. "Young man, don't always be busy. How many days can we spend with each other in our lives? Yes, there really aren't many days to spend with each other in life. But these days, Alara Quinn has been spending time with her good brother. So she doesn't have time to spend with me, her husband. Since Noah Blake returned, Alara has often not come home. At first, I thought she was too busy working overtime, and I felt a little guilty about her hard work. Every day I prepared dinner for her. She worked hard at the company, fighting for our future, until the day I ran into Alara at the mall. She was wearing a short skirt, smiling, holding Noah's arm, and affectionately calling him brother. I, on the other hand, was walking in the staff passage, wearing dirty work clothes and carrying heavy goods in my hands. When she saw me, she immediately turned her head and pretended not to know me. If I hadn't pulled her back, she would have probably walked away. "Alara, who is he? Don't you go to work every day when you come home so late?" I suppressed my anger. Anyone would feel angry if they saw their wife cling to another man. Alara, however, suddenly shook my hand off as if she had touched something unclean. "My brother." I was so angry that I thought to myself, "Why did you suddenly have a brother? Didn't your mother only give birth to you?" Alara was furious. "I clearly said brother. Can't you understand? How can you think like that? Just go. Do you want me to be looked down on like you?" She finished and left with Noah, who was dressed stylishly. I looked at her back and then looked down at myself. I earn my own living, so why should I be looked down on? In fact, no one looked down on me. Only Alara really did. She had always wanted to find a rich man, and had been influenced by the false claims on the internet, thinking that women should treat themselves better. But in fact, for families like ours, simplicity is true. That day, I felt really stupid standing there. In the evening, Alara came home and confessed and apologized to me. She said that Noah was her neighbor's brother, and they had grown up together like real brothers. Now Noah was very successful, while she was still struggling, and she felt embarrassed when she saw me during the day, and hoped that I could understand her. I softened my heart and really believed that she regarded Noah as a brother. Since that day, Alara has become very unrestrained. A phone call from Noah is enough to drag her out of bed. Whenever I mention her, she immediately calls Noah and tells him to come over and confront me. Then she cries and says to me, "You have a problem in your heart. How can you think that other people are like you? What the internet says is right. Men like you are not only incompetent but also stingy. This is preventing me from having a normal relationship. It's practically restricting my freedom." I was silent. Gradually, I didn't want to say anything anymore. Perhaps she was just influenced by some negative information for a while, and it would get better after this period of time. After the meeting, I said goodbye to the old man and left. Looking at the intimate way he and the woman were acting, I couldn't help but feel envious. Although the material goods were not abundant in those days, the feelings between people were more sincere. The phone rang. Alara's voice came through the phone. "I'll wait for you in front of the hospital." I froze for a moment, not expecting her to come and pick me up. Today happens to be Valentine's Day, so maybe she's changed her mind. My steps suddenly lightened. At the hospital entrance, I saw my family's car parked there. Alara was sitting in the driver's seat, and I naturally sat in the passenger seat. Her brows were slightly furrowed. My gaze fell on the cologne on the passenger seat. When did the family car become so high-end? In fact, I already had the answer in my heart, but I still tried to keep smiling. These are this year's 52 golden roses. Honey, a total of 520. I kept my promise to you back then. When we got married, you said you didn't feel secure and didn't want to have kids. You wanted me to give you 52 golden roses every year until I had saved up 520 to prove that I loved you, and then you would consider having a child. I didn't really need a child, but I was willing to prove my love for you. Alara's face suddenly fell, and she impatiently honked the horn a few times. Honey, are you feeling unwell? I'll drive instead. I was a little worried about her driving skills, and it would be bad if something happened because she wasn't feeling well. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, Alara suddenly took her hands off the steering wheel, rummaged through her bag, and slammed her salary card onto me. I'll pay you back. From now on, I won't use your card between us, and you can't try to cheat me. She finished, and then hit the accelerator. Since we got married, I've handed over my salary card to her. I never mentioned it in the past few years when she wasn't working. What does this mean? I wanted to ask her, but she was in a bad mood on the road, and I didn't want to provoke her, so I just agreed first. Okay. I put the salary card away, thinking that I would give it to her when she needed it. Unexpectedly, Alara snorted and said that I was really waiting for this day. I held the salary card in my hand, hesitant. Seeing her uncertain mood, I tentatively asked, Have you encountered something? We are husband and wife. You can tell me anything. Alara gave a cold smile and said, No, it's Valentine's Day. Where's your gift? I couldn't help but look at the golden rose by her hand. Alara became angry. Ethan Hale, that was your ploy on me. You only gave it to me because you want me to have a child, so how can that be a gift? Since it was a ploy, why didn't she give it back to me? I didn't say anything, and Alara continued to nag. Everyone else got red envelopes and gold bracelets for the holiday, but I got nothing. By the way, have you paid the utility bills? Have you prepared a gift for my mother? She slammed on the brakes in front of the housing estate. I was a little between tears and laughter. I have to pay the household expenses and prepare the holiday gifts, so what exactly are you contributing? I suppressed the anger in my heart. Alara looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror and applied her makeup nonchalantly. Ethan, you're not earning enough to support the family yet, so why get married? I still want to give you children, so what's wrong with you contributing a little more? I looked at her and felt like I was meeting this woman for the first time. She now accused me with justification, forgetting that the reason I earn less is because of the family incident. I sold the premarital property to help her. She got sick again, and I worked hard during the day and took care of her at night, exhausting all my energy. At that time, she missed the opportunity to earn money. At that time, she was full of gratitude for me and kept calling me husband, which sounded especially sweet. But now she is accusing me. It seems that all the years of hard work have been in vain. Alara had already gone upstairs. I sat in the car alone to calm down and recall the bits and pieces of these past few years. Before Noah came back, Alara was not like this. She would care about me being tired from work, prepare meals for me to relieve my fatigue, and hug me and call me husband. In her spare time, she would often take the initiative to invite my brothers over for a get-together. Every time I gave her a gift, she would jump for joy, joking that I spent too much money and that I should consider our little family. I never thought that Alara and I would end up like this. Ever since her brother Noah came back, all the sacrifices I made seemed like a joke to her. I tried to hold back my sadness. After all, we had been in a relationship for 10 years. I decided to comfort her. I used the last of my money to buy her favorite snacks. Before I could even insert the key into the lock, I heard her voice from inside the room. Brother, he told me today that he wants to have a child. He really is despicable, trying to control me with a child. I knew that his usual kindness towards me was for ulterior motives. He really isn't a good person. Well, I see. I'm already with him, so I won't lose out when we get divorced. I'll tell him to spend all his wages on household expenses, so the court won't force me to pay back any. I spend all my wages on the mortgage, hoping that the house will be more mine. Besides, his main source of income isn't his wages. His company gives him more in bonuses than wages. I'll tell him to buy me more gifts. Gifts given during the marriage are considered my personal property. I clenched my hand around the key, gradually increasing the pressure. The neighbor came home and shouted brother when he saw me. The sound of conversation in the house stopped suddenly and the door was pulled open. I saw Alara's eyes reflecting the sight of my bulging veins. Alara, in your eyes, am I really that despicable? I tried hard to control the trembling of my voice. After so many years as a couple, she had completely outwitted me. People are all made of flesh and blood, and my forbearance and concessions had become the reason for her to hurt me little by little with a knife. Alara was a little guilty, but she said firmly, I'm despicable in your eyes, and of course I can protect myself. As a woman, I'm a vulnerable group. Shouldn't I protect myself more? How many women have been abandoned by their husbands after giving birth? I don't want to go through that, don't you think I know? Isn't the point of you giving me roses today to keep me here with the baby? Alara, you're not the only person in the world who can have children. I've never raised my voice at you in all the years we've been married, but now my heart really hurts. I give you a gold rose every year, not to tie you down, but to keep my promise. I throw the snacks into the house, don't look at your expression again, and turn around to leave. I heard footsteps behind me, but I wasn't sure if it was her catching up to me. It didn't really matter. That night, I moved out of the house. The company has a lounge and staff quarters. I hadn't lived there before, just taken naps there during the day. I never thought it would become my temporary home. The young people at the company all gathered around when they saw me coming out of the dormitory. Ethan, what big project are you planning this time? If there is a project, remember to mention me. After all, I am also an old employee, and the leaders should listen to my advice. I gave a bitter smile. What project? I have no home right now. During the day when I buy toiletries, my familiar colleagues tease me, Ethan, are you going to live at the company? Will your wife, Alara, agree? They are like rice cakes. They are never happy if you don't work overtime for free, for fear that your wife will be impatient, right? They laugh happily. I opened my mouth to say something, but I couldn't say anything. I just felt a bitter feeling in my throat. After all, in their eyes, I was just a crazy guy who doted on his wife. But all the years of care I had shown had not moved Alara's heart. Not even a neighborly older brother, who had disappeared for more than 10 years, could compare. I had silently endured all this suffering and had never told anyone. In the past few days, my colleagues had also noticed the change and stopped making jokes about Alara and me. Female colleagues at the company who knew Alara always whispered when they saw me. I knew they were joking that I was Alara's follower. I never cared about this before. After 10 years of marriage, I don't understand why Alara's friends dislike me so much. Now I understand that she actually doesn't look up to me, which is why her friends feel free to mock me. When I saw Alara again, she called me after work. She said, Ethan, I'm downstairs at your workplace, but the security guard won't let me in. Alara said. Naturally, the security guard refused to let her in. I told the security guard that we were getting a divorce, and therefore she was not allowed in the office. I held the phone up to my ear without saying a word. On the other end of the line, Alara was getting anxious. Ethan, can you come out and talk to me for a minute? We've been married for 10 years after all. You can't let me embarrass myself out here. If you don't come out, I'll just sit in front of your office and not move. She knew that I would never let her lose face. I stood on the balcony of the office building and looked down at Alara, who was pacing up and down, looking desperate. This was the last time I would indulge your whims. Fine. Wait for me downstairs. I hung up the phone, walked out the door, and Alara threw herself into my arms like a little bird. She wrapped her arms around me, looking much thinner than usual, and there was a bruise under her eye. I had looked after her for so many years, and now she had become like this in just a few days. Alara, what on earth do you want? I took 2 steps back and pulled my arm out of her embrace. Her sudden rejection hurt her. She stared at me in disbelief, waiting for me to bow to her first, as usual. But this time she was wrong. My face had long since lost its dignity, and I didn't care about losing face. But she hadn't. After a moment of stalemate, Alara finally couldn't hold back any longer and said in a hurt voice, "Honey, let's not fight, okay? Didn't you say you wanted to go to the movies with me? Can you accompany me?" I didn't say anything. I had indeed promised to go to the movies with her before, and I had even snatched the tickets to her favorite movie. But what had she done? She had gone to the park with Noah to look at the stars. That night, I waited outside the cinema all night. She found it romantic that we were looking at the same starry sky, but I found it funny. "Ethan, there really is nothing between Noah and me. Our relationship is innocent." Alara cried. Her tears were heartbreaking. In the end, I couldn't hold back my feelings and went to the cinema with her. This time, she booked the tickets in advance, bought snacks, and did everything I had done before. Watching her busy, I actually felt that this was pretty good. In the cinema, Alara gently rested her head on my shoulder. "Honey, I was wrong before. These past few days away from you, I haven't been able to eat or sleep well." In the dark, she stroked me gently, her voice full of sobs. "I've been waiting for you at home these few days. I didn't go to Noah's. I want you to come back. I want to apologize to you. I don't want to make you angry anymore. But you are really indifferent. You didn't even call me." Alara rubbed against me, looking at her apologizing with her head bowed. I felt a little uneasy. After all, I am also a normal person. If it wasn't for her previous behavior, I wouldn't have argued with her so much. After all, we have more than 10 years of relationship. "Honey, can you come back? We can go back to the way things were. Can you forgive me?" Alara lay on my chest, her tears falling. A young couple next to us glanced at us quietly, blushing, and quickly turned away. A word stuck in my throat. Alara's phone rang. She had just laid down very loosely, but now she sat up quickly. "Hello, Noah." Her way of addressing Noah had changed, and she no longer called him brother. Perhaps she really had changed. However, her voice gradually softened. In the end, she even called out "good brother." This caused the couple next to us to turn around frequently, and their eyes seemed to be sizing me up. Putting down the phone, Alara looked at me apologetically. She said, "I'm sorry, honey. I have to deal with something at work." I couldn't hide my disappointment, so I asked, "It's Noah, isn't it?" Alara nodded and said, "He mentioned that he wanted to give me a project." "Don't worry, it's really business." "Then I'll go with you." "No way." Alara and I froze at the same time. She realized that her reaction had been a little over the top and hurriedly held me back, saying, "Company projects have to be kept confidential. I really am just doing my job." I didn't want to hear any more explanations from her and just nodded casually. "I'll go then." She gave me a kiss on the cheek. The warmth of the kiss had barely faded when Alara was already gone. I looked at the empty seat next to me and felt like something had disappeared with her. As expected, she was just like always. Noah only needed to make one phone call to get her away from me. After leaving the cinema, I felt a little lost. Everyone knew it was Alara who had come to see me, and I didn't want to go back to the office just now, for fear of being teased by the guys. Just as I was thinking, I heard the waiter's voice in my ear. "Sir, how many in your party?" I looked up and couldn't help but laugh at myself. Habit is really quite a scary thing. I accidentally entered Alara's favorite restaurant. I found a corner to sit down and, since I was already here, I casually ordered some food and wanted to try some of my favorite dishes today. Before the food arrived, the door to the restaurant opened again. Hearing the familiar laughter, I looked up and saw Alara smiling as she walked in, her arm around Noah's. She half-jokingly said, "You don't have any projects, so why did you ask me out?" I laughed and responded, Just because I don't have any projects doesn't mean I can't want to see you. Order. I'll pay. Noah's hand rested lightly on Alara's waist. Alara glared at him and said petulantly, "Nuisance." I sat in the corner, watching them flirt, and my heart grew more and more uncomfortable. Is this what she meant by talking business? Noah took out a rose from nowhere, making Alara laugh non-stop. What bad luck. Nothing goes right for me. I ordered the food first, but it ended up going to Noah's side. Nothing has happened on my side, and Alara hasn't noticed me. Alara, don't laugh too happily, or Ethan will see and will have trouble again. Noah's words were full of sarcasm. Alara laughed a little. He only knows work, so what's there to be happy about? Don't worry. I told him it was to go to the office to discuss business, so he won't think of anything else. Before, I had complete trust in Alara, and all I could think about was making money and running our family well. So naturally I wouldn't think of anything else. When popularity is really high, you will laugh. My trust has become a reason for her to think I'm stupid. Haha. What are you still doing with such a man? Don't let you be aggrieved and cry, and he is still in a deep sleep. I don't want to break up the two of you. This is just a hypothesis. Noah is really good at talking. He can say both positive and negative things. Don't say that. Ethan is actually quite good to me, Alara said. Noah laughed. Modern men are like this, aren't they? Alara didn't argue, but laughed along with Noah. It seems that, in her eyes, I'm just someone who can spend money on her. If only Ethan had half of his brother's sense of humor, Alara sighed. Alara, don't dwell on it anymore. I won't interfere with you anymore. I wish you and Noah happiness. My feelings for you have faded. I sat in that place and called you. Alara, where are you now? What are you doing? Didn't I tell you I was out discussing a project? Of course I'm at the office. Alara sounded impatient, as if she were a little worried. Really? Then look up. I stood up, looked Alara in the eye and said seriously, Alara, let's get a divorce. That day I left through the back door of the restaurant. For the first time, Alara left Noah and chased after me. But this time I didn't turn back. No matter how low I fell, I would never let myself be let down again and again. After returning to the office, I contacted a lawyer and prepared the divorce agreement. Alara has hardly been to work since her serious illness. I have worked hard to earn all of our family's wealth. Although I don't want to be too extreme, I just want to fairly divide our assets with Alara. Unexpectedly, Alara reacted very strongly to this. She kept calling me, begging me not to divorce. After failing to contact me, she even called my friends. However, my friends had long since lost patience with her behavior and did not help her to contact me. It wasn't until my mother-in-law called. Ethan, I don't know what's going on between you two, but it must be Alara's fault. You've been married for 10 years, what problem can't you talk about? Anyway, I don't recognize anyone but you as my son-in-law, said my mother-in-law with a tear in her voice. I was silent. Mom, Alara and I just have relationship problems. You know exactly what kind of person you are. After 10 years of marriage, you can't just let go of your feelings for each other. Don't lie to me. My mother-in-law cried even more bitterly. After all, Alara's family was able to get through those difficult times because of me. I felt like laughing a little. Even my mother-in-law knows that I am a man of my word. But in Alara's eyes, I am a calculating scoundrel. At the end of the phone call, Alara finally couldn't hold back any longer. Honey, can you let me see you? Please consider my mother's feelings. The two women crying together gave me a headache. My mother-in-law had always been very kind to me, and I couldn't bear to see her upset. In the end, I agreed to see Alara again. We met again in our wedding room. When I opened the door and went in, Alara was sitting on the sofa. Honey, you're home? Alara stood up and pulled me. I subconsciously took 2 steps back, seeing the hurt in her eyes, before I would feel heartache. Now there is only silence. Just sign the divorce agreement. I put the divorce agreement on the table. Alara shook her head and said, No, honey, I don't want a divorce. She started to cry and couldn't stop. After she had cried enough, She looked at me secretly, expecting me to comfort her. But ever since the moment she called me an affordable man, I had no intention of comforting her. Alara, we are both adults. Let's save face. I tapped the documents on the table and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Alara followed me all the way back to the company. Just outside the company, she suddenly threw herself at me, hugging me and crying. Ethan, I now understand that it is you that I really like. Can you not go? I was confused before. I hope you won't be angry with me. You are the person I love the most. And the person I love the most in my heart is also you. I tried to break free, but you were hugging me too tightly. What's the point of understanding now? Alara is still nagging me about my love for her. Every time we had a fight, I would buy her something she liked to appease her. Every year I would give her a golden rose. The year she got sick, she wanted to eat the boxed meal from the train, so I took the train to buy it for her, and it was still warm when I brought it back in the middle of winter. Unfortunately, from the moment she chose Noah, everything I did became useless in her eyes. The more she talked, the more I resented her. People around us whispered, "Isn't that Ethan?" I remember that he was a man who doted on his wife. It sounds like this woman has gone too far. You don't know, Ethan was chasing after her before. Now he probably has come to his senses. I felt my face burn. The humiliation I had suffered over Alara had returned to me. Men really do have more strength. I put my arms around her to calm her down. Alara, we can't go on like this anymore. It's better for us to sign the divorce papers. Alara cried in my arms and said no. I let her go and turned to leave. She tried to grab me, but was pulled away by someone else. Noah had arrived at some point and, with red eyes, said to Alara, who was holding on to him tightly, "Alara, is it really worth it for you to be with a man like this? A woman's value is infinite. How can you treat yourself like this? Noah, stop giving me these negative suggestions." Alara suddenly slapped Noah. She shouted angrily, "If it weren't for you, Ethan and I could have been fine." Noah's eyes were slightly red, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. "Alara, didn't you tell me that a woman has to be independent and be her own master? You also said you would support me if you haven't achieved anything over the years. Isn't it because Ethan doesn't let you go out?" I looked at Alara in surprise. She hasn't worked outside the home for all these years because she's not well, right? I encouraged her to try working before, but she couldn't even show up on time for work, so I let her do some odd jobs at home to take a break. How did it turn out that I was exploiting her? Forget it. Just stop talking. Alara punched Noah several times in a row, then crouched down and cried bitterly. She looked up at me and said, "Ethan, you can see that I really won't contact him again. Can you forgive me?" Noah pulled Alara roughly and said, "You're the one who let me settle down in this city. Didn't you say you'd divorce Ethan and marry me? Let go of me." Alara screamed, struggling like she had lost her mind, scratching Noah's face until it was covered in scratches. "I can't be with you. I've looked up your information. You don't have any money and you're in debt. You just want me to help you pay off your debts. Before, I considered our childhood relationship, and you thought I would like you. I'm telling you, it's impossible. I've always liked Ethan." My eyes became even more lost. So, she came back to me because Noah had no money and was in debt. What if it wasn't the case? Would she be happy to leave with Noah, secretly glad to get rid of me, the affordable guy? Noah didn't care about her feelings, grabbed her wrist tightly and let her scream as much as she wanted. "Alara, let's go back and talk. I still have the record of our chat. You must have forgotten," Noah said as he pulled her towards the car. Alara looked at me for help. But now, I don't have the responsibility to save her. The people around us also didn't feel comfortable stepping in. Everyone knew about their relationship, and it would be troublesome to intervene. I hesitated downstairs for a while, and finally called the police in the name of my husband. At the police station, Alara looked very disheveled, with obvious slap marks on her face. According to the police, the two of them had a fight. Alara injured Noah and had to receive stitches in the hospital. When I went in, Alara was like a frightened rabbit. shaking when she heard the door open. She burst into tears when she saw it was me. Honey, I really know I was wrong. I'll never look at those things again. Let's make a fresh start. Okay? She said, choking back tears. No. I stood in the doorway, looking at her, and my heart didn't stir. Turns out that when you no longer love someone, you also stop feeling pain. Alara, this is the last time I'll help you. If you don't want to agree to a divorce, we can always go to court. I'm sure you've already looked into the relevant laws. I felt a little helpless. We weren't even divorced yet. But she was already making all kinds of preparations. But she has grown used to depending on me over the years, and she actually thinks that people outside the family will accept her unconditionally. Although she has prepared a lot, in the face of reality, all of this is futile. Alara curled up in a chair, as if this was the only way to protect herself. In the past, I would hug her tenderly, care about her situation, and help her solve problems. But now I only took my divorce agreement. Back at the office, free from the burden of the family, I devoted myself to work. My performance continued to rise, and the company increased my salary several times. I was also given the opportunity to further my studies. On the night I left for the trip, I received another call from Alara. Ethan, can you come back? Her voice sounded tired. I didn't say anything, and there was silence. She didn't seem to be waiting for an answer, and continued, after you left, I realized that I actually rely on you a lot. My mother has fallen ill again, and I don't know how to take care of her. She started to cry. Ethan, if you come back, I will listen to you and I will correct my mistakes. Listening to her crying, I sighed. Alara, one must learn to live independently. Hearing my voice, Alara cried even harder. It took a long time before she stopped. She said, if you don't come back, I really don't want to live anymore. I have no reason to go on without you. I sneered. She didn't mean she couldn't live without me, but that she couldn't lose my care and attention. Whether she lived or died was none of my business. I hung up the phone and boarded the plane to a foreign country. After returning to China, I saw Alara again. She hadn't died, but had married Noah as she wished. She was no longer the slender girl I had first met. I almost didn't recognize her. She was leaning against the wall, chatting with the other women, holding a cleaning tool in her hands. I didn't feel uncomfortable at all standing among the group of women. Ethan, she called eagerly. I was dressed in a sharp suit, and when I looked at her, she subconsciously avoided my gaze. Alara, I haven't given you your wedding gift yet, I said with a smile. Behind me, a beautiful girl walked out, taking my arm. Ethan, is this the Alara you mentioned? You really had good taste before. Don't speak so freely in the office. I lowered my voice. The light in Alara's eyes gradually faded. As I walked away, I could still hear the derisive laughter of the group of old women around her. Alara, you really were ignorant before. How could you let go of a man like this? If it were me, I would never let him go. Look at the kind of person you've married now. After closing the door, the lady who had just put her arm around me let go with a smile, saying, Mr. Hale, I'm not a bad assistant, am I? I can help you avoid trouble when necessary. I glared at her, thinking about focusing on my work. I heard that after I left, Alara had a hard time. Without my support, she realized that everything in life costs money. Her romance lacked the support of money and was reduced to an empty shell. As for her so-called independent life as a woman, it was actually not something she could support on her own. Under the pressure of life, she still chose to marry Noah. Unexpectedly, Noah, who had originally made her feel romantic, turned out to be a domestic abuser after marriage. I no longer care about this,